So let's round up a bunch of Warhammer releases, including the new Battlefield trophies, new guard rules for the upcoming Combat Patrol, a new Space Marine Standard Bearer, teasers for a return to Cadia, and a whole bunch of other Warhammer 40k news. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today I thought I'd round up a whole bunch of 40k news from the last few days, a few Games Workshop articles, teasers, reveals, and releases for this week, many of which were Imperial Guard themed to tie in with the Codex. None of these I think really needed an entire video all to themselves, but I still found them interesting enough to want to talk about. First up, Games Workshop's Horus Heresy Thursday has dished up another fancy new Loyalist and Power Armor. This time we've got a Loyalist Herald Console, basically another fairly nice looking Heresy era relic banner bearer. It seems that as with the Space Marine Overseers that they had for their Mortal Chargers, they're both going to be doing a Loyalist one of these guys, and then also a Traitor one. I'm sure won't be going for quite so noble vibes, but more of a blasted standard, or the Space Marines fallen to the War Master's schemes. I've seen people a little bit divided about the standard and banner maybe. I feel like the standard itself looks kind of nice, though I guess the little banner cloth attached to it is kind of on the weedy side. Feels like it is supposed to be more of an adornment to the standard itself though, as opposed to a banner in its own right. But I maybe do see where they're coming from. In general though, I think it looks well balanced enough with the main focus on the eagle. Otherwise he's got a head swap option, I think maybe with some braids there. The helmeted head is all looking rather regal with a head crest. He's armed with a chunky power fist, and one of the more interesting things is a bionic leg on his right leg there, all ready for stomping some heretics into the dirt. Looks like he'd likely be around £28, €35 or $45, judging by the fact that he's a Horus Heresy 412 miniature and a slightly more minor generic character. I guess potentially could be interesting enough to 40k Loyalist Space Marine collectors. Could be an interesting enough alternative ancient if you wanted one. He also showed him off in a few different colour schemes as well, apparently painted up by the Heresy era team. There's a couple of different Ultramarines ones and also a Dark Angels one. Interesting to see a few different takes on him. I feel like that Dark Angels one is looking rather nice indeed with that weathering and sort of Martian style base. Next up, alongside the Imperial Guard Codex launch, Games Workshop seems to have kept up a steady stream of Astra Militarum related content, and one of them was an interesting teaser for what looks like a fun little animated short called Return to Cadia, which is going to be coming to Warhammer Plus sometime later in January. To build a little bit of hype for that one, they had a 40-second teaser trailer for it, showing a ship approach a fragment of the destroyed planet, and going to somewhere that's called the Remnants of Kazas, the Kazas being the ancient destroyed fortress cities, and I guess that's probably where Kazakin come from. In any case, now it's a shadowy city on a fragment of destroyed planet, and an Arvus lighter approaches there. Great big imperial statuary, supposedly at a shrine of martyrs it said in the intro, all looming down over them, and then it gives us the teaser text of Return to Cadia, coming in January 2025, so not too very long to wait to see the full animation for that one. Certainly a fun teaser to build up a bit of intrigue, I guess, for people who subscribe to Warhammer Plus, as it does sound like it's going to be locked behind their paywall. It's kind of interesting that it's done in their slightly more realistic style animation as opposed to the slightly more cartoony style that Hammer and Bolter is better known for. I guess to be honest, it's ultimately Games Workshop commissioning all the works though, and I guess they can mix things around and put things under different titles if they want to. Being Hammer and Bolter though sounds like it's just going to be the one episode rather than a 3-episode series like say the Tithes one or that previous Pariah Nexus series, and they did give us a couple of teasers as to what would happen with it. Apparently it's going to be a squad of the Cadian 25th Regiment returning to Cadia for a ceremony of some sort, maybe a bit of a regimental pilgrimage to instill on them the importance of fighting chaos and all that. I'm going to guess that if they're in a Warhammer animated short, it's probably not going to be entirely peaceful for them. Maybe some sort of Xenos or Chaos entity might have found itself lurking away in their homeworld while they've been gone. In any case, I felt like it was an interesting little teaser. It certainly makes me intrigued to know more. Before we move on to other model teasers, releases, and interesting rules things, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor in Weyland-Yutani terrain. They're one solid option to get your hands on a whole table full of very functional competitive Warhammer 40k terrain. These guys are the ones who supply the WTC, pretty much the biggest and most prestigious 40k team tournament in the world. Their terrain's made of fairly thin and portable but also fairly sturdy plastic, and it comes in quite a lot of different colours with different designs that they have to customise your set. And certainly compared with Games Workshop and a fair few MDF offerings, you can equip an entire table worth of terrain for at least fairly cheap. Say for example this WTC Warmaster GT pack is a fairly balanced one, and that's got 4 big ruins, 6 medium ruins and a bunch of armoured container type things for around £117 or $150, all shipped from the EU. Otherwise they have the current WTC Pariah Nexus terrain pack as well. This one skews a bit heavier towards the really big ruins plus some sort of girder forest type things. And also, if you just need a little bit more line of sight blocking terrain in your life, they've got a smaller set of 4 sets of 3 of the more standard ones. Quite nice to have bits that can physically block lines of sight to really quite tall models, things like Imperial Knights. In any case, feel free to check out their website, links down in the video description below. If you do choose to pick anything up, there's a code AUSPEX5 for 5% off if you did want to save a bit on those above prices. In any case, thank you to them for sponsoring this one. Otherwise, for more Guard content this week, the Regimental Standard made another appearance. This one's Games Workshop occasional dose of uplifting Imperial propaganda, and on Friday they dropped another one with a Deathcore flavoured one. This one interestingly aimed at Kriegsmen and what you could do rather than just go for a bayonet charge and sacrifice yourself for the Emperor, as they are supposed to be a bit unusually keen to do that. They're only short and they usually feel that they're pretty well done, worth a quick read. I'll leave a link to that in the video description. For a rules update, it looks like the Grotmus detachments have hit the Warhammer 40k app. While they were releasing all the content over December, they kept on saying that the detachments would come to the app in January, and it now looks like now's the time. They've been out for a few days now, that you might need to still manually update the app to the current version if you do want to get your hands on the new detachment for army building and things. If your army's got a Codex, you still need the Codex codes to access all the content in that though, you can see the Christmas detachments. For the most part, they seem to work fairly well for accessing the rules there, if that's where you often get your rules. I did see some people discussing on a Reddit post that they're missing a few of the Vanguard invaders from the Genestealer Cult allied to Tyrannid one. I guess they missed out on them due to having been added later, as they only added the Vanguard invader keyword to the Borrower type units like the Trigon and Morlock fairly far down the line. One minor reveal from the Guard Codex that I didn't think really needed its entire own video to focus on it, but I still found interesting, was Drayden's Lance, the new combat patrol. This is the rules for the cavalry heavy one, where you have 10 Rough Riders, the Cadian Command Squad, and the Cadian Kazakin, which in a recent poll in the last video on the channel, it seems that 92% of people were in agreement that this one was worse than the previous combat patrol box set. In any case though, if you already had the models available, or things to proxy in for them, the Codex also has the new rule set for this one. Listed on it is a trimmed out army rule, basically getting orders but only 3 of them. You can fix bayonets, take aim and take cover. Commander Drayden presumably has a choice of a couple of enhancements, either an additional order that they can order at any range, or to hand out the objective secured sticky objectives type rule, both for his unit and the unit that he's ordering when he does it. For the secondary objective choice to rustle up a few more victory points, you've either got ones for destroying a unit on no man's land for 3 VP, or swap that out for 4 victory points for each objective held at the end of the battle. I guess that's just gambling on destroying the enemy. And then for stratagems, there's a fights on death for a 4+, which I guess is nice enough for melter tip lancers. 1 command point to designate a prime target with the officer, or your units getting lethal hits against it, and 1 command point for Born in the Saddle, a -1 to hit for Rough Riders when shot. In any case, could be another rule set if you want to play Astra Militarum Combat Patrol and you already have the models available, or if you're looking to pick up the Combat Patrol box set. I have a feeling that it's going to be in lower demand compared with a bunch of the others in 10th edition, though I feel like maybe for some established collectors it could be okay as an expansion, just really doesn't seem to be what you'd start with. Talking of Guard rules, I thought I might also just mention a couple of other bits of rules weirdness from the Guard Codex review. I mentioned this one briefly, but I did find it rather funny that the las pistol on the Krieg heavy weapons team gets a casual 48-inch range. So this guy who's currently on the phone, dialing in some fire coordinates, basically is the world's best shot with a las pistol. He won't hit every time, but he can hit a target at a massive 48-inch range, the same sort of range as the heavy stubbers and the big las cannons. It's almost certainly just a typo on the datasheet, given that some of the other weapons there are 48-inch range, but I do just quite like the idea of this guy just standing up, casually downing a target at 48-inch range, and showing the Deathcore guys mounting the big las cannons and the heavy stubbers and things how it's done. Otherwise, another thing that I'd seen mentioned a couple of times in the comments was that the changes to Militarum Tempestus Scion Deep Strike not only make the entire Bridgehead Strike detachment far worse, but also basically make one of these stratagems basically entirely redundant with the Bellicosa drop, which does seem kind of weird to me, as it both feels like the detachment both was and wasn't written with the new Guard Codex in mind. This stratagem is for the Scion and Infantry focused detachment that came out in the Grotmus detachments, and for this one you basically pay 1 command point and then your unit can drop in anywhere that's outside of 6 inches, and it applies to any Astra Militarum infantry unit with Deep Strike. When the detachment came out, it made a lot of sense. You could apply it to your Militarum Tempestus units and have them turn up right next to the enemy, and hopefully reach some unusual positions to lay down some special weapon fire. Since the Codex though, the Tempestus Scions lost their Deep Strike, I guess given that they're not visually equipped with the grav shoots that the Tempestus Aquilons are. So in theory, you'd hope you'd be able to use it on the drop scions, but then the Tempestors Aquilons basically already get this as their special rule. They can only close drop without any command points. It does feel kind of weird that the detachment looks like it was written with the Codex in mind, given that it's the sort of detachment that you really expect to be in the Codex, as Militarum Tempestors are a pretty major sub-theme within the army. They've even had their own Codex and own expansions every so often. So it just felt very odd that they didn't get their own detachment in the Codex, and they seem to have deliberately left it out to put in the Grotmus ones. It feels like they had some sort of coordination with the Codex, but then just completely didn't anticipate that rather monumental change to Scions that was coming literally a month or so later. As it is, it looks like this stratagem just can't be used on basically any of the currently non-Legends Imperial Guard units. Not even Gaunt's Ghosts look like they can make use of it, as they don't actually have the Deep Strike rule, just a rule that works like it. Today is pre-order day for the new Death Korps of Krieg. This one's the major release of the week, though there was a few other stuff as well that I hadn't really talked about quite so much, given all the focus on the new guard book and all the new models. I'd certainly be interested to catch up with how well it sells. When this video goes live, it should be going up for pre-order in the UK and the EU in around about 1 hour's time after release, so some more heads up if you do want to try and be early to it. We don't know how many they're going to stock at the moment. The channel's discount affiliate links should all have some good stock of them, though how fast they sell out is another question. I do have a bunch of links down in the video description to various different discount retailers in the UK though. I'd be ready to maybe bounce around a few discount sites if places do sell out quite quickly. The box set should be going live at 10 AM, and any of the links in the video description help to support the channel a bit. In any case, hopefully Games Workshop makes some good supply of them. Aside from the much talked about Death Korps box set though, there were a bunch of other things going live this week. One other smallish but kind of fun release for 40k with these Battlefield trophies. Basically an enormous pack for a huge amount of faction skulls for just about every race in Warhammer 40k. Nice trophies that you could have put on your models' bases or trophy racks or whatever. They've got all sorts here, from Tau Fire Warrior helmets to Chaos Space Marine helms, a bunch of the Deity Legions, some Orc skulls, Tyranid heads, and a few helmets for things like Sisters of Battle or Adeptus Arbites. Looks like the big pack comes in at $38, £24 or €30. I feel like maybe in terms of Games Workshop upgrade things, perhaps not the worst in terms of the amount of stuff you get for the money. I feel like there's a bit of fun factor to this one at least, though definitely not a necessary purchase really if you're trying to save money a bit and save the money for your actual miniatures. Otherwise, this week was quite a big release week for the Lord of the Rings. A bunch of individual models being sold. I think that some of these were from the starter sets, plus that hero character, and a whole load of other more classic Lord of the Rings things coming back. Could be of interest to a few of you Middle-earth enthusiasts out there. Otherwise, and tying in with the theme of the week rather well, there's not one but two different Guard books going on sale. The Lord Solar book by Rob Young, apparently telling the story of him being crash-landed on an Orc planet and leading the Resistance. And also there was another fun little book release in the Imperial Infantryman's Handbook. I think that's a previous release that they've reskinned a bit for the Death Korps of Krieg. Could be a bit of fun for some Guard collectors out there. I believe they've sent that one out to some discount retailers as well, which they don't often do with book releases, and that might mean that you can get it a little bit cheaper at third-party sellers across the world, as opposed to just direct from the Games Workshop web store. Otherwise, looking to the future of Warhammer 40k, the next big thing on the horizon are the LVO reveals within the week. These will be taking place at Thursday the 16th of January at 9 PM Pacific time in the USA, which rather unfortunately translates to a slightly painful 5 AM in the UK. They'll certainly be on standby to report on any of the cool new Emperor's Children reveals. This is the one that Games Workshop did the silhouette teaser for. We got a Horus Heresy Siege Automata, an Old World Beastman Shaman I think that is, some sort of great big and nasty Necromunda Bug, maybe from the Ash Waste perhaps, and an all very vampiric knight redone for Age of Sigmar. For 40k collectors though, the focus is going to be pretty firmly on the new Emperor's Children. We've already had the silhouettes that can only be Lucius the Eternal unveiled, Lash of Torment in one hand and Blade of the Lair in the other. I'm really hoping that we get a good amount of Emperor's Children releases, and a pretty reasonable chance they could turn up in a launch box, much like the Death Korps of Krieg do. Games Workshop do enjoy those. Otherwise, besides that, next on the horizon I guess would be the Eldari release, though I don't know whether or not they'll be coming out before or after the mainline launch of the Astra Militarum. They often have a slightly annoyingly long gap between the Codex release in the launch box and then it actually going on individual sale, so it could be the one or the other. In any case though, plenty of interesting stuff on the horizon. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you make of the Heresy Standard Bearer boy? What's going to be lurking in the ruins of Cadia? What are your hopes for the LVO reveals? And are any of you going to be picking up that Skulls box set and putting a whole bunch of things on your bases? As mentioned earlier, a big thank you to Weyland-Yutani terrain for sponsoring the video. If you do want some WTC style competitive 40k terrain, their link's down in the video description, and there's that code ALLSPECS5 for a 5% discount on anything that you pick up. In any case though, I'll leave that one there for now. I'm sure I'll be back to talk something else guard related within the next 12 hours or so. Loads more to dig into with the new book. Feel free to subscribe to AllSpecs Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out every day. If you'd like to support the channel, check out the affiliate discount links down in the video description, or the channel's Patreon page to support a bit more directly and get a few benefits such as voting in polls, seeing videos early, and entry to the regular monthly giveaways. In any case though, an absolutely massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.